As of recording, it's been 20 years since the last TimeSplitters game came out, in any official capacity. TimeSplitters Future Perfect did decently, but not enough for EA standards, and because of that, we didn't really get another game. Not for lack of trying on Free Radical's part, they certainly did their best. TimeSplitters 4 for the PS3 and 360 is evidence that they were really trying to get something else out. And evidence of other attempts at remastering or re-releasing the game, like with the hidden TimeSplitters 2 port in Homefront the Revolution, or even TimeSplitters Next, which was a mess, but it was a mess they were trying to salvage into something resembling the other games. But time keeps coming on, and it's becoming grimmer and grimmer, the prospects of a new game. I mean, in the time since its release, between 2005 and now, Duke Nukem Forever came out, we got a new Half-Life game, we got more Serious Sam games, we got 2 new Dooms. All the games that seemingly wouldn't get new installments got new installments before TimeSplitters did, while this small but still beloved franchise kinda just sat aside. Nobody really managed to get it out of its rest. Not for lack of trying, though. People really tried to get it somewhere, but publisher interest just wasn't there. Or either that or Embracer had their whole financial issue, not funding it properly, buying up way too many properties and not having enough to show for it. What I'm getting at is, I don't think we're getting another TimeSplitters game. And I've made peace with that. I don't think in any official capacity we'll see a new release. Best case scenario, maybe one day we'll get a PC port of either the original games or the most popular one, whichever that would be. But I am not holding out hope for TimeSplitters 4 or a best of TimeSplitters game like Next. I don't even really expect Rewind to come out at this point. I think if it does, it'll probably be just with all the TS1 content finished with some of the other stuff from the other 2 games, too. I had nothing against the mod team. They're good people. When you're in a passion project like this where you aren't getting paid, I can understand why people jump ship at the chance to join an actual studio, and that just means they've got this whole cycle of people leaving and people starting fresh. I hope it comes out. I want to be proven wrong. But 20 years. 20 years since Future Perfect came out. That's wild. I mean, there's a flourishing online community sharing maps and everything, so that's kind of cool. And there have been tribute games and such, which is actually going to be the main focus. Because I don't think we're getting a new TimeSplitters game,
And honestly, given how toxic some aspects of the community have really gotten, I'm not even sure if we have the right environment for a new TimeSplitters game at this point. I think there'd be too much hostility, too many issues.
there are alternatives in terms of story and in terms of gameplay. Whichever aspect of TimeSplitters you liked, I think there's an alternative out there for you, whether it's a mod or a game. So I'll go over a handful of my personal picks as a way to make this not as dreary, because the spirit of the games can still be found in titles that have been inspired by it, or games that have similar concepts and themes. I'll run down the list of things that stand out to me the most. Right off the gate, since I've already talked about them, TimeShifters I would absolutely recommend in both the story and gameplay category. It's a love letter to the original games, with gameplay closer to the first TimeSplitters, where you're running in, getting an item, and you're getting out, trying to get the fastest time possible. It's fun, it's quirky, it's goofy, it's got good challenges, and a wacky variety of weapons and enemies. I've spoken highly of it on 2 occasions, and I still really am fond of it, especially with the updates they got to add map maker and bot support and everything else, even a new story map. I would also recommend RickRollEye 64. which is kind of niche. It's a GoldenEye 007 mod, but it really captures the wacky, time-traveling, first-person shooter vibes that the original TimeSplitters games had. That one I've also covered in detail. It's a meme mod, sure, but it does more than just reskin GoldenEye. It changes how weapons work, how enemies work, it adds bosses and other things, completely flips levels around, it does a lot with the material it's given. And it's a fun time too, especially in multiplayer. Some of my friends can testify to that when we've played it local multiplayer. Now then, those two are the most immediate ones because I've already covered them. Some others I would recommend would probably be, for the story and gameplay, I'll separate them because there isn't a lot of overlap. For story, my first recommendation would be the Burton Equation. That is a Half-Life 2 mod, and you can actually find it on Steam. And it's all about this 1920s noir detective as he decides to take on a case involving this Metro gang. A bunch of strange men in gas masks led by a notorious gangster named Fabrine. And as he pursues this lead, it takes him across several time periods, complete with an appropriate color tint and soundtrack, like the 1920s, the 40s, the 80s, and then the present day of Half-Life 2, where the Combine run a dystopian empire over the Earth. The gameplay is more like an action-driven Half-Life 2 experience. There aren't many puzzles or anything of that sort. It's pretty much action-packed from start to finish. But it's fun. Weapon variety is good, and I really enjoyed the ways the levels were designed. The arenas were entertaining, and the combat was intense in a fun way. I like the noir-style level intros and narration. I thought those were really entertaining, and I really like the voice performances put in.
The streets have been run by the Metro Gang for 2 years now. Corruption is everywhere. Reports dropped in the trash before they ever make it to my desk. For Bryn Kostrutzi, the head of the operation, he's got dirt on everyone.
Each time period had its own boss battle with its own unique mechanics, and that was another fun thing I enjoyed too. Soundtrack's good, especially the one for the 80s levels. Though I think that the noir levels could have used a more action-y soundtrack. They're kind of on the slow side. But it's still nice background music to hear. Adds to the pulpy 1920s detective movie vibe. Overall, Burton Equation is something I would recommend. If you want something akin to TimeSplitters with hopping between timelines, collecting a bunch of strange weapons to use against mysterious enemies, and having those timelines eventually intersect over time. Another mod is TimeWarp, but this is actually a Half-Life 1 mod, and this feels a little closer to the cartoony aspects of the TimeSplitters series. The reason I mentioned the Burton Equation first is because Burton Equation is complete. You can play the full thing. TimeWarp has 2 demos. They're both really good, but it's not finished yet, and so I should probably put that as a disclaimer. TimeWarp follows the story of an android sent through time to prevent the rise of an evil dictator, involving him getting involved in various timelines like the 1930s and the present day. It plays more like a Half-Life 1 mod with platforming and with familiar weapons changed to more appropriate designs and some of those features being included. The mine demo is a little on the rougher side, but it's still really fun. The city demo is really where it shines and where it shows its strengths. It's colorful, it's fun, it's lighthearted, and the art style is really easy on the eyes too. It isn't afraid to be a goofy, enjoyable shooter with a bright color palette. And both levels have done a good job of telling the story in short bursts, while having creative action sequences and puzzles. I really like the roster of characters they've lined up so far. They seem really fun and quirky, like the android assistant that your cyborg protagonist has. On the gameplay side, well, If you're just looking for arena shooters, there are plenty of options you can find looking around. I would probably say Unreal Tournament 2004 is a classic if you want bot support with a lot of different weapons, a lot of different modes. Can't beat that. I also would say that the original GoldenEye and Perfect Dark are classics if you want to get that TimeSplitters vibe, in no small part because similar groups of people worked on them, and the mods for them, like GoldenEye X, I would also recommend. That's actually gotten what's going to get some updates for the campaign and co-op that look really promising. In terms of more modern stuff that you can get your hands on, if you want the more wacky and timeline combining aspects of TimeSplitters, but not necessarily the exact gameplay, then I'd recommend Ravenfield, because that allows for a ton of modding opportunities for combining weapons from different eras and different skins for your characters. It's more like a Battlefield game, but it has the potential to be a lot like TimeSplitters, with the potential to pit like muskets and flintlock pistols against modern weapons, and to have you go up against insanely outnumbered odds. And also, it's a single-player game that is absolutely built around bot support, so there's a lot of charm behind that. In addition to that, I would also suggest Science and Industry, which is a Half-Life mod. It's not quite similar to TimeSplitters. It plays more like classic Half-Life, but the big thing is, I would say, the arsenal of weapons and the environments of it. It has a lighter, more stylized art design, and the whole premise is that you're these two rival mega corporations that are investing into their science divisions while trying to take the other down through less than legitimate means. So you're fighting to capture rival scientists and destroy enemy company property. It's a fun multiplayer game if you can find people playing. It also has bot support, which is the reason why I brought it up. The bot support for it is good, and overall the bots are pretty competent. You can put up a good fight with them. And I enjoy how they also upgrade themselves in the same way that you can do for your team. Because the choice left up to you as to how you use your science department's funds and what you upgrade for, like, weapons and for character abilities. The enemy team does it too, though, so you have to be aware of that and counter that as needed. If you want a much more chaotic arena experience in the Half-Life department, I would probably suggest Cold Ice or Jabroni Brawl as well. They're a little bit more on the sensory overload side of things for my tastes, but they're still really fun, and the devs really just... I like the kitchen sink approach I took to multiplayer, where they're just throwing everything from dual wielding to triple jumping into the pan to see what sticks. I totally messed that idiom up, but oh well, it is what it is. Well, I guess nothing can really replace the originals, though. I've always suggested the Homefront port. It's still pretty good in spite of not having map maker or online play or split screen. It's closest thing you can get to a PC port unless it's officially done for TimeSplitters 2. Really, all I really want is just the characters of TimeSplitters. Don't even really need the story levels from 2 and Future Perfect. Even the first games would be fine. Just the characters, the guns, the levels of TimeSplitters, and the music, just with all the different arcade levels put together. So you can pick and choose from the different games and just make arcade matches off that. I didn't really need anything complex, just something like that would be fun. If something like that existed, I would buy it in a heartbeat. I'd play it in a heartbeat. But I'm not sure if it exists. So, just gotta learn to let go of things. Clinging on to something in times like these can just lead to it becoming a bad memory and associating it with negativity. In this case, it would just be with disappointment and lost hopes and just things not really lining up with what you'd hope from the people who enjoy the games. But you know what? That's why you learn to let things go and move on. It's okay to still look back and enjoy the games and cherish aspects of them. The friends you made through them, the times you had playing with other people, online or in person, and the fun you had building stuff with Map Maker and everything else. Or even mods in my case and other people's cases. But I'm ready to accept it. We're not getting a new TimeSplitters game. It's not gonna happen. I eagerly hope I'm proven wrong. Let's see if that pays off, but for now I'm comfortable accepting that possibility. I'm comfortable moving on and just looking back at the games fondly. They helped shape what my taste in games looked like, and they gave me some very memorable experiences at parties and other things as a kid. So I'm grateful. And I'm grateful to Free Radical for trying their best to keep the franchise going in spite of all the obstacles thrown at them. Thanks for that. And thank you for watching. Take care.